Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished professional from Bangalore, India, Mr. Gopal Iyer. Gopal, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. It's a pleasure to be part of this show.
Thank you.
I've seen a lot of other episodes, so thank you for inviting.
Thank you. Gopal is the Chief Operating Officer of Noble House Consulting Private Limited. He's also a podcast host and hosts a podcast which is titled Career Shifts, Stories of Reinvention. So, Gopal, before we start talking about coaching and then after that some consulting work that you do, tell me about your own journey in brief.
Sure. So 21 years in the industry, started off in HR, typically managing expat assignees. So started off managing their assignments and then eventually also to do the policies and so on. Eventually to play slightly larger roles in EY, which was on program managing the future of work initiatives. And that's when, incidentally, IIM Ahmedabad stint happened. And I joined them to set up a school of public policy, very different than what I had done in the past. Did that for a couple of years, but the heart was still in Bangalore, so came back to Bangalore last year, and now working for Noble House Consulting. Noble House is a marketplace for independent consultants and freelancers. So we work with consultants, freelancers across age groups and find them opportunities. So that's a short, sweet summary of what I've done.
Thank you. And what encouraged you to become a coach?
I'd written, incidentally, just a couple of days before about this on Father's Day. So my dad used to be, I was born and raised in Mumbai, and my dad used to work as a cashier and an accountant in Automobile Products of India Limited, which was into the manufacturing of scooters and auto rickshaws.
Yeah.
The company shut down in 1992, and because he was in the accountant and cashier, he was responsible to take care of settlements of people.
Right.
And the 10 years that he continued from 92 to 2003, he would keep getting a lot of calls from people about when is the settlement happening, when can we expect the money and all of that. And he would just patiently speak to them through the old school land phones, as we all know. And for some weird reason, all the land phones in our homes were always on a little higher. This one, and you had to literally stand and talk. And I had seen him stand and talk to people for countless hours. And that kind of somehow, remained in my head of how he was empathetic, patient, and, listening to people and providing them with some guidance, advice. And as I look back to that journey, I feel what I do today, the little bit I do of coaching is heavily inspired by what he used to do. So that's been my motivation. But professionally, I think one of the HR leaders sometime in 2017 told me that, this was one of the expats, in fact, who was in India, said, you do a good job of, making people feel comfortable when they come to the country. Why don't you explore coaching as a career proposition? And that's what led for me to learn about coaching. So it's been about 7-8 years now. I've done enough and more number of coaching assignments, and on my path to becoming a credentialed coach as well. So it's been an interesting journey.
Wonderful. And in all the coaching assignments that you take, what are some of the kind of challenges you address with your coachees, and how do you help them?
So one of the most important challenge that we have been seeing in the recent past is that of self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And especially I deal with a lot of people in their mid-careers wanting to transition into the newer career options. And there is always, and to be honest with them, I think the career trajectory of a lot of people are also changing. So you're no longer starting in one particular experience and expertise and continuing in that for 40 years, like how our parents would have done. So when opportunities come in whatever form or shape, and they are transitioning into new career avenues, they find themselves to be in a fix where they are not sure of how to go about it. And this could also be a result of a promotion that happens within the organization. So how do I transition into new phase of my career is typically when they come approach people like us. And the two major aspects that they kind of, that comes through the conversation is, um, I'm not sure if I'm good at it, because I don't know if I haven't done some of these what are expected of me. And through the journey for the next few months, it continues to be, can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? And then kind of through conversations, we help the coachees to go through that, and be successful. And I think the lack of coaching culture as coaches also is something that we really look at. We are great at advising and mentoring,
Right.
but people are not really used to coaching as a philosophy where the emphasis is more on you as a coachee to take action.
Correct.
I think that's something that also are interesting observations that I've had in my coaching journey.
Fascinating. And I love this thing that you just told me about self-doubt and imposter syndrome. Would it be possible for you to give me an example of someone who was facing an imposter syndrome and how you helped him? And I don't want any names, of course.
I can tell about myself. And this was, and just to give an example, because when I moved from EY to IIM Ahmedabad, I had 17, 18 years of HR experience. And here I am finding myself in a role where I have been asked to set up a school of public policy. So what are the new turf? The new turf is one, industry to academia, two, HR to public policy, three, the way academic institutions as a setup works, and how you're not talking about an organization but an institution. And I was first few months literally struggling to figure out if I'm doing the right things. And literally first conversation with my boss, I asked, like, why did you even hire me? What skills did you see that you
Yeah.
made a decision to hire me? And I think one of the things that she said, which really helped me and also helps me as a coach, is there are skills that we have, which is a combination of several years of work that we do, which are transferable, and not necessary that you will find the right person for the right role with all the skills. So sometimes we, as leaders, take a bet that, yeah, this person possesses certain skills which will be of great value addition to the role. And that's why we hired you. We saw some great things that you have done, and we felt it would be wonderful for you to be in this role. And that kind of reassured me. And then I think as leaders, if you're able to kind of give people that comfort of, this is why I'm, placing a bet on you, or hiring you and allowing you to perform, and even if you're failing, that's fine. Ask as many questions as you want. It makes the lives easier. And that's what I, as a coach on both the sides, being someone who is transitioning into, and or people who are hiring such people who have little or no background or expertise, give them as a perspective to reflect upon.
Well said. Gopal, you also spoke about supporting some leaders in transition. What is your approach when you help them to navigate career transitions?
So one of the most important aspects that we as leaders don't do as often is self-awareness, which is have we might have gone through trainings per se, but really not sat down and understand, um, who am I, what do I do, what do I do really good. So I'm also a Hogan certified assessor, and Hogan gives you a fantastic perspective on, how do I see myself, how does the world see me, and at the end of the day, what kind of comes across in terms of what is happening in terms of my motives, values, and beliefs. So what makes me me? Uh, Now, I took that assessment for the first time in my life when I was in my year 20 of my career. And I told the person who was giving me debrief that I wish you had done this, or I wish I had taken this 20 years ago when I started my career. So self-awareness is something that is very, very minimally done, to be
Right.
honest. So I start with that.
Mm.
How aware are you about what you're good at or what you're not good at, or how is the world seeing you?
Mm.
And then once we have that conversation, there is a baseline that gets set, which
Mm.
is that there are strengths, there are great strengths that you are good at, there are aspects that you may want to focus on, and then
Mm.
we start building the goals around it.
Mm.
Sometimes the goals are slightly easier because the organization who is asking you to coach these executive would have some expectations of you as to, okay, in 6 months I want this person to be operating at this level, and that becomes a part of the conversation as well. But many a times it also evolves beyond that,
Mm.
and also becomes a lot more personal leadership journey for individuals to go through that aspect of, okay, this is where I am, this is what I want to do. And bringing in those vulnerable moments, they kind of become a lot more richer leader, if
Mm.
I can call that, through the end of the journey. So
Mm.
that's been my approach, and that's worked really well
Well said.
through the career transitions as
Well
well.
said. When I was preparing to chat with you from all the documents you had sent me, you also speak about personal branding. So my question is, how do you incorporate the concept of personal branding in your coaching?
Wonderful question, Ashutosh. And one of the things that I really speak in general, and not necessarily about in my coaching conversations alone, is the aspect of personal branding. And I very humorously give this analogy, which people really resonate with. I say, imagine that you want to buy something on the e-commerce platform. Let's say you want to buy a mobile, and when you really go and check in a platform and say mobile, um, you would see a list of about 10 to 15 devices, and the chances are that you would pick in the first page itself. You would not go to the page number 395 to go and check which is a mobile that is available. And why is that? It's because of the algorithm that has been given. So first product typically is a sponsored one, or any e-commerce
Yeah.
sponsored one. Second is, of course, the bestseller. The third is, of course, would be something which is a new entry. um, if I were to consider ourselves as product for a moment,
Mm.
the presence that we make felt in any platform, for that matter, is of utmost importance.
Mm.
So the moment you reached out to me, for that matter, for this podcast, you would have looked me up on a couple of platforms and would have made a perception about, okay, Gopal Iyer is this guy who does this, blah, blah, blah. Every conversation that happens
Mm.
uh, through the whole part of personal branding is around this, where we look at what this person is all about.
Mm.
And that is why personal branding is very important. Now, what is personal branding? It's about bringing in our genuine, authentic self, but just be a little more open and vocal about it to the entire world so that they know a little bit more about us. Why is that important? It's because we live in an age of tech where, like it or not, we are part of this ecosystem where we are being searched, right? The moment anyone searches our first name, last name, the first link is going to be LinkedIn. And if we don't have a presence that is good enough, then people will make perceptions, and we are then creating perceptions without even knowing about it. And then the whole battle becomes, I want to change the perception.
Right.
Rather take charge and be a little more ahead of the game in creating that good brand for yourself. So
Mm.
in my coaching conversations or any other conversation, I give them this perspective to say, if you want to be seen, heard, or found, and if you want to ensure that you have a good presence, just take that part of in a little bit of initiative to make sure that you're showing to the world who you are. And
Mm.
that's why it's important, in my view.
Well said. Well said. And one last question on coaching, and then I want to move to strategic consulting.
Sure.
What would you say have been some of the benefits in your coaching as a result of your background in strategic consulting?
I mean, in my view, consciously or subconsciously, I would say both have worked hand in hand, because I worked 10 years of my career have been in EY and Deloitte. And it's always about solving the client's problems. And sometimes also about making the client realize that they have a problem. Um, which I think which is where the whole journey starts. So if you really look at the blue ocean and red ocean, at times blue ocean where you say you tell the client you have a problem and try to create a solution to sell it to him, and that's the consulting world. But but jokes apart, I think even in coaching conversation, what you're trying to do is try to assess this individual of what the person's potential is and what the performance has been, and is there a disparity between the two. And if there is a way that we can solve it through interventions, which means through conversations, goal oriented conversations, it could help him or her eventually. And the consulting or consultative approach also gives a little bit of an edge because you're now aware of what is happening in the industry, what is happening in the broader geopolitical scenario. You could bring those elements into the conversation for the person to, understand what are some of the challenges that he or she may not be able to see, and then bring the coaching elements back for more deeper conversation, which a typical coach who does not have a consulting background may not be able to do that effectively.
Well said. So, Gopal, I'm going to move to strategic consulting, which is another area
Sure.
that you are very strong in. My first question is, what are some of the common challenges companies face during leadership alignment, and how do you help them address these?
Um, See, we're living in a very interesting times.
Yeah.
On one hand, we have large multinational organizations have been in the business, are also struggling for talent in various ways. So one is the multi-generational workforce that is coming in and changing the whole dynamics. Attrition is a problem, and you're unable to retain talent, you're unable to attract talent, and all of that. Uh, and then you have the startup ecosystem where the whole challenges are very different. You can, I mean, you may want to have the best of the talent, but you can't afford because of various reasons. And taking an HR view of this, I feel the biggest number one challenge today is leadership, and lack of alignment because of that. So one, there is a purpose. Two, there is an action. And when they don't meet each other for various reasons, it's because of poor leadership and their inability to kind of share their vision to the people.
Right.
And if there is a way that we are able to bring in that alignment, I think that's what becomes bulk of the work that I do, where we try to get into those conversations as to say, why are you doing this? And how can you say the same thing and bring in the same narrative in your conversations with your people? And that's what is the biggest challenge. And yeah, I spent a lot of time in bringing in right interventions, coaching, workshops to bring in the alignment within the ecosystem.
Fascinating. You also worked a lot with international companies and worked with a lot of international people. My question is, what strategies have you found to be most effective in driving cultural transformation in a multinational environment?
This is something that India has to be very proud about. I mean, I would say,
Yeah.
because we have done what the world probably is trying to do now in the last 5 years, since the last 30 years, right? GE and the GCC, for that matter, have allowed us to have that global exposure, access to talent, expats coming in. And I have worked a lot with expats in my first 17, 18 years of my career. So working with people internationally, it gives you a very different culture, empathy. And I've traveled quite a bit to the world as part of my role as well. One of the first things that you learn is shed the bias, right? Because the other person is going to look different, talk different, behave different, experience different things. And how do you kind of still be okay and work as a team is going to be the
Right.
most important part. And
Right.
I've been fairly successful about that in my career. Now, bringing that perspective, what is most important today in bringing the cultural shift is both the sides need to be okay with embracing the cultural differences. So talking about that, in fact, when in one of my earlier roles, I was given this additional responsibility of being a cultural mentor on both the sides, where you try and introduce India to this gentleman sitting across the other country, and vice versa, so that there is a good understanding of what's needed, and also be that mentor to say, if this messaging has to be given to people at large within the organization, the leader needs to be coached about this. Now, when you're making a statement like this to someone sitting in India, it's going to be taken as an offense. You may want to convert that into a slightly more different tone, because as India, we are a little more emotional, we are a little more vulnerable, and kind of tone it down or tone it up based on the requirements. So I think those experiences have really helped me being more successful in some of those interventions. So that's what I would say.
Okay. And my last question to you. This is the age of data analytics, of artificial intelligence, of technology. What role does technology and analytics play in your consulting?
Um, I mean, I think you rightly said AI, which is the new age tech, as we all see now.
Yeah.
Um, and also to do with a lot of um, how does AI enable analytics, for that matter. I mean, there was a day and age when analytics was all about Excel spreadsheets, tracking data, different sets of data across different functions. Today, the ERP solutions with the advent of AI have become a lot more smarter about bringing in good set of data into a format which is easily presentable. Um, and also, let's talk about the advent of ESG norms today, where it's a lot more important to report on some of these matrices, factors that are impacting global businesses, for that matter. So AI is going to help make things a lot more simpler, easier. So how does it help? It makes the decision making a lot more easier, simpler, because you now have access to very specific set of insights about business, about people. With AI, you can also predict some of these aspects with predictive analytics. You could also make decisions for other countries or about other people that you may typically not have access to with analytics. Um, this is just the beginning, in my view. I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface. Unfortunately, what we as humanity need to focus on is that one additional step of storytelling. While analytics are there, while reports are there, while dashboards are there, we lack great storytellers to convert that data into some bit of narrative building or influencing. And I think that's a journey that we all are on. And I think as more and more people start doing concentrated efforts towards this, I think it will become a lot more easier. I know for a fact that a lot of academic institutions are investing heavily into this. And I'm sure the results will be seen in the near future for sure.
Well said. Gopal, on that note, thank you so much for speaking to me about your own amazing journey. Thank you for speaking to me at such length on different aspects of coaching and strategic consulting. Thank you again and good luck.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.